In Edo, Japan, around 1750, on the western shore of Lake Biwa, a woman named Kitamura is packing carp into a cedar tub weighted with a 30-kilogram river stone. She will not open that tub for 2 years. What emerges will keep her 4 children alive through the winter of 1752. A modern Western refrigerator draws 400 kilowatt-hours a year to kill the exact microbes that made Kitamura's tub feed her family. This is a list of 25 preservation techniques that let rural Japan eat well and live long without ever plugging anything into a wall. Number 18 can only be made in one specific valley in Nagano. Number 2 requires the fermenter to render a lethal neurotoxin harmless without understanding how. Number 1 takes 3 full years to make, and fewer than 5 people alive still make it the old way. We start at 25. Number 25, Yuki Muro, the snow cellar. In the Iwonuma region of Niigata, where 30 feet of snow falls in an average winter, farmers dug a pit, packed it with snow, and covered it with straw so thick the snow held until November. Inside, the temperature stays between 0 and 4 degrees Celsius year-round without any external power. At the Hakai-san Brewery, Yukimuro in Minami-Wonuma today, one facility packs 1,000 tons of snow into an insulated storehouse every winter and stores 360,000 liters of maturing sake. In Edo, Niigata, a day laborer earned about 80 mun a day, and the snow cost nothing. The modern equivalent pays $648 a year in electricity to run a refrigerator that holds less than 1% of what a Yuki Muro holds. Japan kept the snow cellar. The West built the 80-gallon compressor humming under every American kitchen. Number 24, Kiriboshi daikon, sun-dried radish strips. In late autumn, farmers cut fresh daikon into pencil-width strips, spread them on bamboo screens, and hung them under the eaves in the winter wind. In 3 to 5 days, the water content dropped from 95% to 16%. When daikon is exposed to winter sun, enzyme activity in the root cells converts starch into free sugars. Compared to fresh daikon of equal weight, Kiriboshi daikon contains 23 times more calcium, 10 times more vitamin B1, and 16 times more fiber. In Edo, Japan, a bundle of fresh daikon cost about 15 mun, 3 days of a laborer's meals, but a farmer with a bamboo screen and a windy afternoon could preserve a season's worth for free. Today, Miyazaki produces 90% of Japan's Kiriboshi daikon. You could replicate this in your kitchen this weekend with 3 daikon and a windowsill. Number 23, Kanpyo, the sun-dried gourd shaving. In 1712, the daimyo Torii Tadateru was reassigned from Minakuchi in Shiga to Mibu in Tochigi. He brought the seeds of the Yugao gourd and ordered farmers to plant them. 300 years later, Tochigi produces 90% of Japan's kanpyo. A mature yugao weighing 7 kilograms is peeled by hand into a single continuous strip 5 meters long and 3 millimeters thick. The strip is sun-dried for a day and a half, shrinking to a millimeter thick, and keeps in a paper bag for a full year. Tochigi's total national output today is only 268 tons, and in Minakuchi, in Shiga, where the tradition began, fewer than 6 artisans still peel yugao by hand without industrial bleaching. When the last of them retires, the unbleached artisan kanpyo will exist only in the Shrine Festival at Ukawa Tenmangu. Number 22, Shimi daikon, freeze-dried radish. In the Suwa Basin of Nagano, where January nights drop below -10 degrees Celsius, farmers at the end of the Edo period discovered that if you hang a whole daikon outside at night, freeze it solid, and let it thaw during the day, the freeze-thaw cycle draws water from the vegetable cells and leaves behind a naturally dehydrated, sweet, shelf-stable radish. The technique takes 2 weeks of nightly freezing. Finished shimi daikon can be stored at room temperature for a year and rehydrates in an hour of simmering. Today, at a farmhouse stay in Chino City called Yamora Stay, elderly local women still teach visitors how to hang the radish, judge when the freeze is complete, and reconstitute the shimi daikon for a winter simmer. Any garden shed in Vermont or Minnesota at the right temperature could do the same. Number 21. Zenmai Preservation, the daily massage sun-drying of royal fern. In the Tohoku Highlands, farmers foraged the coiled shoots of zenmai in April and May, as the ferns emerged from snowmelt. Raw zenmai contains bitter alkaloids that must be leached out. The traditional method is to boil the shoots with wood ash, let them sit overnight, then salt them in wooden barrels until autumn. When it comes time to dry the shoots for winter, the farmer spreads them on a bamboo mat and rubs each strand between the palms every day for a week so the shoots do not become brittle. This daily massage is what distinguishes usable zenmai from cracked twigs. In the Dewa Sanzan region of Yamagata, salted zenmai is a required course in the temple cuisine of Mount Haguro, and the foragers who supply the temples average past 74 years old. When they stop climbing, hand-massaged zenmai stops with them. Number 20. Warabi and the wood ash detoxification. Warabi is Japanese bracken fern, and raw warabi is poisonous. It contains taquiloside, a carcinogen that will damage the intestines of anyone who eats it uncooked, and yet for nearly 2,000 years, mountain communities of rural Japan gathered warabi as an essential foraged food of spring because they had discovered a technique. Fresh warabi shoots are placed in a shallow pan covered with wood ash from a hearth fire and drenched in boiling water. The alkalinity neutralizes the taquiloside overnight. The neutralized fern is then salted into barrels or dried into a shelf-stable bundle. In a famine winter, a family that knew how to detoxify and preserve 20 pounds of warabi had a food source that carried them into February. The families who knew the ash technique ate through the coldest months. The families who did not, did not. Number 19. Hoshi Imo, dried sweet potato. In 1824, a merchant named Shozo Kurabayashi in Omiyazaki City, Shizuoka, developed the technique of steaming sweet potatoes whole, peeling them by hand, slicing them into thin ribbons and drying them for a week in the winter sun. During drying, natural sugars migrate to the surface and crystallize into a fine white powder. The finished Hoshi Imo keeps 6 months at room temperature. Large-scale production began in Ibaraki in 1908, where northeasterly winter winds from the Ajigora coast created ideal drying conditions. Ibaraki now produces over 80% of Japan's Hoshi Imo. At Koike Farm on the Ajigora coast, fourth-generation owner Kazuaki Koike still combines machine drying with sun drying to produce 5,000 kilograms a year, but the traditional full sun-dry method has been replaced almost everywhere else by industrial dryers. Number 18. Kanten, the freeze-dried agar. In 1840, a Suwa peddler named Kobayashi Kumazaemon learned the technique from craftsmen in Tanba near Kyoto and brought it home. Boil tengusa seaweed into a thick jelly, cut it into sticks. Then, when January nights drop below -10 degrees Celsius, spread the sticks on wooden platforms in drained rice paddies. Over 2 months, the jelly freezes every night and thaws every day, and the cycle draws water out until only pure polysaccharide agar remains. Nagano produces over 60% of Japan's kanten, worth 8.5 billion yen in 2023. But the traditional Suwa production window has shrunk from 120 days in the 1950s to 70 days today. As one Chino City producer named Miura told the Tokyo Foundation, 30 years ago it reached 10 below at night. Now it rarely gets to 5 below. The unpredictability is killing the craft. Here is where the story turns from what the Japanese housewife did every winter to what the trained artisan did every year. The next 15 items require patience. The modern West mostly gave up in the 20th century. Number 14 alone required a Toyama kelp master 3 trips to Hokkaido before he could begin. And number 1 is fermenting in a wooden tub in Shiga right now, and will not be opened until 2028. Number 17. Tsukudani, the soy-simmered seafood preserve. In 1590, Tokugawa Ieyasu relocated 33 fishermen from Tsukuda village in Setsu, near modern Osaka, to a reclaimed island in Edo Bay he named Tsukudajima. In 1646, they built the Sumiyoshi Shrine that still stands there. On days when the sea was too rough to sell fresh catch in Edo, they simmered small fish, clams, and seaweed in soy sauce, mirin, sugar, and sake until only a glossy, preserved food remained. Packed into cedar boxes, it kept for weeks at room temperature. Samurai under the Sankin Kotai system carried it home as a souvenir, and by the mid-Edo period, tsukudani had become a staple side dish across Japan. On Tsukudajima today, 3 Edo lineage shops still operate. Tenasu Honten, founded in 1837, Tsukudagen Tanakaya from the late Edo period, and Tsukudani Marukyu, founded in 1859. Number 16. Munini Imo, the Ainu freeze-thaw fermented potato flour. The Ainu, the indigenous people of Hokkaido, faced winters more severe than any farming community south of the Tsugaru Strait. Fresh vegetables would not keep. Root cellars froze solid. So the Ainu developed a technique that used the extreme cold as a partner. They dug pits in the fall, packed potatoes into them, and left them to freeze and thaw repeatedly through the winter and into the spring. After multiple cycles, the potatoes were partially fermented by naturally occurring bacteria. In spring, the Ainu milled the fermented mass and dried the flour, which they called munini imo. It kept for years and rehydrated into a sticky pancake with a sourdough tang. In a famine winter, Ainu families that stored munini imo survived. The families that did not, did not. Number 15. Rieb, the Ainu snow-frozen salmon. The Ainu word ru means to melt, ipi means food, so rieb literally translates as melting food. In late autumn, when salmon return upstream to spawn, the Ainu caught them and either buried them in snow pits or hung them on outdoor drying racks. Hokkaido winter temperatures below -20 degrees Celsius froze the salmon solid within hours. The Ainu could then slice the fish thin at any point through the winter and let it thaw in their mouths. This did not just preserve the fish. Freezing below -20 degrees Celsius for extended periods reliably kills anisakis, the parasite in salmon flesh, which means Ruibe made raw salmon consumption safe in northern Japan. Modern commercial fishing uses industrial freezers to replicate the effect, but the specific technique of ambient snow freezing is preserved almost entirely by Ainu chefs in downtown Sapporo, most of them past 60. Now we cross out of the interior and into the seaboard, into the traditions built around the Japanese preoccupation that shaped everything salt. Number 12 is produced at a rate of 1 gram per sea urchin. The 11th requires 2 years in a cedar cask before you can open the barrel. And number 9 kept the imperial capital fed for 1,000 years, 1 porter at a time. Number 14, kombujime, the kelp-cured fish. In the Edo period, coastal shipping vessels called the Kitamai Bune sailed the Sea of Japan carrying Hokkaido kombu kelp south. In Toyama and Ishikawa, fishermen discovered that sandwiching a fillet of whitefish between 2 sheets of dried kombu did 2 things at once. It drew moisture out of the flesh through osmosis, and the alginic acid on the kelp surface leached out and lowered the water activity, stopping bacterial growth. Free glutamate in the kombu migrated into the flesh, and after 12 to 24 hours the fish emerged firmer, carrying a savory depth raw sashimi cannot achieve. Time course biochemistry at the University of Tokyo has confirmed the mechanism. In Edo Toyama, a fisherman used kombujime to transport sea bream inland to Kyoto without ice. Toyama kept the kelp. Western fisheries built the ice pack. Number 13, tofu misozuke, the miso-cured tofu. In the mountain villages of Kumamoto in southern Kyushu, More than 800 years ago, a specific technique developed to preserve fresh tofu for months without any refrigeration. Extra firm tofu, called kashinoki tofu or oak tree tofu because it is dense enough to be tied with vine grass, is drained thoroughly, wrapped in cheesecloth, and buried in salty miso paste for 6 months. During that time, miso enzymes break down the soybean proteins into free amino acids, and the salt draws out the moisture that would let bacteria grow. What emerges is not tofu anymore. It is a firm, cheese-textured block with an intense umami that Kumamoto locals call yamauni, mountain sea urchin. In the Ayugairi district of Yatsushiro City and Itsuki village in Kumamoto's mountain interior, tofu misozuke is still made by a handful of home producers. When the current generation retires, the 800-year lineage ends with them. Number 12. Shiuni, the salted sea urchin of Echizen. In the mid-Edo period, the feudal lord of Fukui domain, Matsudaira Haruyoshi, commissioned his purveyor, the third-generation proprietor of a shop called Tentatsu, named Amano Gohi, to develop a preserved sea urchin as emergency food in the event of a maritime attack. Amano walked the entire Echizen coast, searching for the right ingredient, and settled on the local Bafun uni. Fresh gonads are separated from the shell by hand, salted heavily, and matured in cedar jars until the salt integrates with the roe into a firm umber paste. It is one of Japan's 3 great chinmi, alongside karasumi and konowata. Over 100 sea urchins produce 100 grams of shiuni. Tentatsu was founded in 1804, and the current proprietor is 11th generation Junichi Amano. There is no other producer in Japan making shiuni by Amano Gohi's original method. Number 11. Ishiri, the Noto Peninsula fish sauce. In the mid-1700s, fishing families on the Noto Peninsula of Ishikawa developed a fermentation that turned squid intestines, sardines, and mackerel into a concentrated fish sauce that would keep for years. Whole sardines are salted and packed into cedar barrels, or squid intestines stacked with less salt. The barrels sit in a warehouse for 1 to 3 years, during which summer heat drives fermentation and winter cold prevents spoilage. Ishiri is one of Japan's 3 major fish sauces, alongside shatsuru from Akita and Ikanago shoyu from Kagawa. In 2023, the Noto Ishiri Producers Council registered the technique as an intangible folk cultural property. In Noto's Oji port, a producer called Kaneishi still makes ishiri the traditional way, but the council openly acknowledges that the aging producer population is a critical concern, and few young apprentices are entering the craft. Number 10. Shatsuru, the Akita Hata-Hata fish sauce. Around 1600, a fisherman named Daimon Tsukuemon developed the technique of preserving hata-hata, the Japanese sailfin sandfish, by packing salted fish into cedar barrels and fermenting them for 1 to 3 years. It became one of Japan's 3 major fish sauces and kept Akita's coastal communities fed through winters when soy sauce was too expensive. In the 1960s, 25 producers made shatsuru in Akita. By the 1990s, the hata-hata population had crashed from overfishing, and only 4 to 5 producers remained. But in Oga Peninsula, an 88-year-old brewery called Moroi Jozojo took on the mission of reviving shatsuru production. Third-generation owner Moroi Hideki now packs hata-hata into cedar barrels every autumn, while voluntary fishing closures let the species recover. When you buy a bottle of Moroi shatsuru, you are buying one of the last threads of a 400-year-old technique that came within a decade of disappearing. Here is where the stakes rise. From here down, we enter the traditions that fed emperors, kept armies alive, and, in one extraordinary case, required the fermenter to render a lethal neurotoxin harmless without ever understanding how. Number 2 is punishable by law if made outside 4 specific towns, and 1 bite of a raw version would kill an adult in under an hour. Number 9. Saba Kaido, the salt-cured mackerel highway. In the 8th century, the Wakasa region of southern Fukui was designated a Miketsukuni, an imperial food province tasked by law with supplying seafood to Nara and later Kyoto. Mackerel spoiled quickly, so Wakasa's fishermen developed a technique that combined preservation and transport into a single operation. Fresh mackerel were gutted and heavily salted at the port of Obama the moment they were caught. Porters then carried the salted fish in baskets on their backs along a mountain route 80 kilometers into Kyoto. The walk took 3 days. By the time porters arrived at Kyoto's markets, the salt had penetrated the flesh at precisely the right rate. The route is still called the Saba Kaido, the Mackerel Highway. Japan kept the porter's route from bay to capital. The West built the refrigerated container ship and forgot that some of the best preservation happens in transit. Number 8. Heshiko, the rice bran fermented mackerel. In the mid-Edo period, when Wakasa's fishermen faced winter months too rough for fishing, they turned salted mackerel into a shelf-stable protein source that fed a coastal family from November through March. Fresh mackerel were gutted and salt-cured for a week, then packed into wooden barrels with rice bran, salt, and dried chili, and left to ferment for 6 months to 1 year. Modern Fukui producers like the Ain Cooperative in Kyotango still make heshiko the traditional way, but household producers have fallen by more than 80% since refrigeration arrived. In 2021, Hannah Wastick, in Justin Sonnenberg's lab at Stanford, published a landmark study in Cell showing that 10 weeks of daily fermented food consumption increased gut microbiome diversity and decreased 19 inflammatory blood proteins across all subjects. What Fukui grandmothers ate every day of winter for 400 years, Stanford has now measured and confirmed. Number 7. Kasuzuke, the sake lees pickle. When a sake brewery presses fermented rice mash to extract finished sake, what remains is an aromatic paste called sake kasu, still carrying enough active yeast, koji enzymes, and residual alcohol to preserve anything buried in it. In Niigata, farmers developed the technique of packing vegetables, fish, and meat into aged sake kasu and letting them cure for months. Kasu-cured daikon, cucumber, and salmon emerged with a mildly alcoholic depth ordinary pickling could not match and kept at room temperature for a year. In Muika Machi, in Niigata, a workshop called Imanari Tsukamono still makes yamagazuke using sake lees from the Hakai-san brewery next door. But small sake breweries in Japan have fallen from 4,200 in 1955 to about 1,200 today. You could try this at home this weekend with any bottle of aged sake kasu, half a daikon, and 2 weeks of patience. Number 6. Konowata, the salted sea cucumber intestines. In the 9th century Engishiki, Konowata is listed as tribute to the imperial court from Noto province. Intestines are extracted from live sea cucumbers, washed in seawater, drained, salted at 10% by weight, and fermented in cedar jars for a week. The finished paste has a viscous, honey-like sweetness with a briny undertone, and the yield is brutal. 100 grams of finished Konowata requires 5 kilograms of fresh sea cucumbers. In the Edo period, when the Owari Tokugawa clan presented Konowata from Morozaki in Aichi to the shogunate, it joined karasumi and shiuni as one of Japan's 3 great chinmi. Today, sea cucumber populations in Mikawa Bay and Ise Bay have declined sharply, and Konowata producers, using the traditional slow salt method, have fallen into single digits. Number 5. Kaburazushi, the Kanazawa yellowtail turnip narazushi. Around 1729, a chef of the Kaga domain named Funaki Denai Kanehaya recorded a recipe that would become the winter delicacy of Kanazawa. Fresh yellowtail is salted and cured for a month. Winter turnips are pickled in salt for 2 weeks. The yellowtail is sliced thin, sandwiched between turnip halves, packed into a cedar barrel with koji rice malt, carrot, and yuzu peel, and fermented 8 to 10 days. Lactic acid bacteria in the koji, primarily Lactobacillus sakei, drive the pH to 4.3, making the finished kabarazushi shelf-stable. Since 1875, a Kanazawa shop called Shijimaya Honpo has produced kabarazushi in the same lineage. Dr. David Ludwig at the Harvard Chan School of Public Health has published research identifying the live lactic acid bacteria community that develops in kabarazushi as one of the most reliable dietary sources of probiotic support. The Kaga chefs figured out the microbiology in 1729. Harvard published the confirmation 300 years later. Number 4. Kusaya, the fermented brine-cured dried fish. In the Edo period, on the volcanic Izu Islands off Tokyo, salt was so valuable that islanders paid tribute to the shogunate in salt. So when a fisherman on Niijima salt-cured his catch, he could not afford to throw the brine away. He reused the same salt water repeatedly, adding salt as evaporation shrank the volume. Over generations, this reused brine became a fermented, pickling liquid called kusaya eki, alive with microorganisms unique to that specific barrel in that specific house. The finished kusaya is dried mackerel scad soaked in the family brine for 8 to 20 hours and sun-dried for 2 days. On Niijima today, Iketa Shoten is a 4th-generation kusaya producer, and its current owner, Ikemura Ryota, uses a kusaya eki that his family has continuously maintained for 300 years. The number of kusaya producers on Niijima has fallen from more than 50 to 4. Here is where the story pays off. The next 3 items are what Japan reached toward across 1,000 years of hunger, ingenuity, and patience. Number 1 takes 3 years to make in a cedar tub, weighted with a 30-kilogram river stone. Number 3, karasumi, the salted and dried mullet roe. The technique reached Japan via Nagasaki in the late 16th century, but Japanese-style karasumi was invented in 1675 by a Nagasaki resident named Takano Yusuke, using local mullet caught around Nomozaki district. His shop, Takanoya, is still open today at 116 Tsukimachi in Nagasaki. The egg sacs of large female mullet, 70 to 80 centimeters in body length, are removed without breaking the membrane, salted in cedar tubs for 3 to 6 days, soaked in fresh water for a day and night, pressed under wooden boards and hung in the winter sun for 40 days, brought inside every night, and rotated daily. For over 150 years of the Edo period, karasumi was formally presented via the Nagasaki magistrate as tribute to the Tokugawa shogunate. Between Takanoya and the Fukui producer Amanotatsu, fewer than a handful of shops still make karasumi to the original Edo standard. Number 2, Fugu no ko nukazuke, the pufferfish ovary rice bran pickle. Only 4 small districts in Ishikawa are legally permitted to make it: Mikawa in Hakusan City, Ono and Kanaiwa in Kanazawa City, and Wajima. Outside those 4 districts, the technique is prohibited. Pufferfish ovaries contain some of the most concentrated tetrodotoxin found in any organism on Earth. A half-milligram dose is fatal, and there is no known antidote. The Edo period detoxification requires 2 years of salt curing, then another year of fermentation in rice bran with koji, ishiru, fish sauce, and chili. 3 years total. During those 3 years, something happens no scientist has fully explained. The tetrodotoxin drops to a level indistinguishable from ordinary muscle. In 2013, Sakaguchi and colleagues at Japanese universities published a peer-reviewed study in toxins confirming the mechanism, with no pufferfish nukazuke poisoning incident ever recorded in the 4 districts. The primary producer is Arayo in Hakusan City, founded in 1830. Number 1, Funazushi, the 2,000-year-old fermented carp of Lake Biwa. Narazushi, the ancestor of all Japanese sushi, arrived from Southeast Asia in the 8th century, and by the 9th century in Gishiki, it was being collected as tax tribute from Omi Province, modern Shiga. Nigorabuna carp are caught in spring, gutted through the mouth, packed with salt, and layered in cedar tubs weighted with 30-kilogram river stones. They cure for 2 full years. Then they are rinsed, sun-dried for a day, packed in a fresh cedar tub in layers of cooked rice and fermented for another year. In 1619, a chef named Kuemon Yamagataya opened a shop called Kitashina in Takashima on the western shore of Lake Biwa. His 18th-generation descendants, Atsushi and Moriko Kitamura, still make funazushi in the same building today, in the same cedar tubs, with the same Nigarabuna fished by the same 3 families, in the same 3 inlets. Fewer than 5 traditional funazushi makers remain in Japan. Japan kept the wooden tub and the 2 years of waiting. The West built the ice cube and forgot how to wait for anything. Japan today has more people over the age of 100 per capita than any nation on Earth. That is not despite the wooden tub and the freeze-thaw radish. That is because of them. So pick one, cut 3 daikon into strips this weekend, and hang them by the window. Wrap firm tofu in miso, and forget about it for 2 months. Pour sake leaves over a cucumber, and see what happens in 14 days. 300 years before we built the machine that killed the microbes, they built the wooden tub that fed them. One culture kept the patience, the other built the cold chain. And we are only now beginning to understand which one was worth keeping.